One of the most powerful structures that you can use to grow your consulting business are retainers. I'm going to talk through here some of the different considerations, best practices to help you to not only craft a really compelling, valuable, and powerful consulting retainer, but also to help you to optimize your retainers if you're already using them. So let's talk about some of these best practices. We've helped many of our clients, both who, running mids to high six-figure, well into seven and multi-seven-figure per year businesses, to optimize and launch retainer offers. Why is this so valuable? Well, the big thing is that you are creating a lot of consistency inside of your business, right? If you think about the predictability of having clients pay over and over and over again, right? That is what some people call the subscription economy. If you think about why Amazon launched Prime, Netflix, right, is again something you pay monthly. And this is not to say the goal is certainly not to have thousands of clients, paying you on an ongoing business. So those are consumer examples, but the power is still the same. It is the predictability. If you think about one of the greatest things that kind of not holds back, but I'd say causes a lot of anxiety and fear for consultants is the ups and downs of their business, right? You have one month where things go really well. You have another month where things don't go as well. You have a bunch of clients at one time, and all of a sudden you don't have as many clients, right? So it's that roller coaster, that feast or famine type of situation that really is a challenge for so many people. Retainers is one way to solve that. And when you do this the right way, it can be incredibly powerful for your business. We've witnessed so many of our clients over the years go from just launching retainer offers, and now fast forward, they're well into seven figures in their business, so well over $1 million per year, just on the back of retainers. And you can do this in a very effective way if you are setting it up the right way. So let's talk about what that actually looks like. The first thing that I'll share here is that when people hear retainers, they often think, oh, this needs to be kind of lower value, cheaper monthly subscriptions, and that is definitely not the case. Your retainers can be anywhere from $2,000 a month to $50,000 per month. There are situations where consulting firms will actually charge six figures per month to work with clients on a retainer basis. If you look at some of the largest firms in the world, it's not uncommon for them to be charging even $1 million or more per month, depending on the engagement. But for most people that'll be watching this, you're going to be likely somewhere between $5,000 and $25,000 per month, give or take. Again, could be higher, could be lower. But my suggestion to you here, and of course, this is not financial or legal advice. None of my videos are. I'm just sharing with you what we've found to work in 20 plus years of growing our own consulting businesses and working with thousands of consultants at consultingsuccess.com, helping them to do the same thing. And that is that start with the highest level clients, meaning think about how you can launch a premium retainer offer rather than a low-cost retainer offer. Just imagine for a moment you have one client paying you $15,000 per month, right? Or do you want to have three clients paying you $5,000? Now, three clients paying you $5,000 may actually not be a bad thing, right? Because you're creating more diversification. But imagine for a moment that you needed 10 clients paying you $1,500 a month for you to achieve the $15,000, whereas opposed to having one client or three clients, right, paying you the same 15,000, right? Whether it's 5,000 times three or one times 15,000, right? You'd have to manage those 10 clients to achieve the same level of income. And that's generally not a good idea, right, for most consultants. My suggestion to you here is get clear on what value can you deliver to your most valuable current clients, past clients, and prospective clients, and launch with a premium offer. It's much easier in our experience to develop a premium offer and deliver on that, and then think about, do you want to create a lower priced offer for some other aspect of the market? But if you start by launching a lower priced offer, you'll get stuck with it. You're going to end up having these clients that are paying you recurring fees, which is great, but they're paying you lower fees than you'd probably want. And now you have to manage them. And the time that it takes to manage those clients means that you're not going to have the time that you want to actually go out and launch the higher value, more premium offer or work with those higher value clients. So start with thinking about how do you craft and how can you craft a retainer offer for your highest value clients. A great opportunity for you is to actually think about your existing client base or past clients. So rather than taking a brand new offer and going to the market with it, start by taking this new offer and going to people that already know you. That now gets into my kind of second main point, which is around validation of this. So you want to validate the demand by identifying patterns of what do your top clients consistently ask you for help with, or what are the topics that are most top of mind for them? What are the problems that you seem to be pulled into or asked about on an ongoing basis? Or what are the challenges that your ideal clients have, again, on a recurring basis? Where can you add the most value? And because you have access to these people, whether they're current clients or past clients, it means that you have the ability to engage in a meaningful conversation and get feedback from them. If you ask them about what's something that kind of keeps coming up on a regular basis that you find is a real challenge for you, or where you see the greatest opportunity inside of your business, that if you could just make it a little bit better every single month, it would add up to a very significant, consistent win for you. The other thing I should say is that you as a consultant already have this expertise. So if you spend some time thinking about this and doing some research around it as well, you'll probably already have 2 or 3 ideas of where you could focus and what your retainer offer could be all about that would be relevant to your ideal clients, because you understand your client base, you understand the industry or the position that they have and what they likely need the most help with, or what their biggest problems and challenges are. But if you have a few of those conversations, then you can start to validate, is there an interest here, right? You can say, I'm thinking about launching this new offering, or I'm thinking about, this new program, this new structure. Here's why. And it's because we see people that they have these ongoing challenges, or there's new laws and regulations, and there's changes they have questions about, but right, all this stuff where you're essentially identifying that there is value in being accessible and engaging with your client or their teams on an ongoing, regular basis. And you're painting that picture, and you're not just trying to sell something, you're asking for agreement and acceptance from that buyer. And so you're going to get that feedback from them directly as to whether they agree with you that, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, that would be so valuable to have, or no, I don't really see that. No, we don't really have that problem. Well, now you can dig into that more and ask more questions and figure out if the initial plan that you had, or the initial problem that you want to solve, or the work that you want to be doing isn't the right fit. Where is the right fit? There's almost always going to be a right fit. You just need to have the conversations and do some of the work to figure out what that is. If that's something that you want help with, this is the kind of thing that we do with all of our clients inside of the Clarity Coaching Program when they want help to develop a recurring revenue retainer offering that can really generate a lot more predictable revenue and growth into their business. So once you've done that and you've validated, right, you've had those conversations, now the next thing that you're going to be looking at is how to structure the offer. And some people ask the question of, well, how do I position this offer where it makes sense? Because oftentimes buyers just want to say, like, they'll say, I just want to hire somebody. So let's imagine for a moment that the buyer is looking for a VP of strategy. What does a VP of strategy cost? Well, it's going to be $250,000 to maybe $400,000 per year, not necessarily even including all the benefits and, the signing bonuses and dealing with severances and healthcare, and like that number could potentially balloon significantly beyond that. It could also include equity in the business and a whole bunch of other things. So your positioning to say, what is the value of having, bringing you in as the expert in this example of a, VP strategy level expertise, or even beyond that, is that one, they don't have to pay the same level of high cost. Maybe your fee is $15,000 a month. So it's significantly less than $250,000 to $400,000. But the other thing is they don't have to wait to find the right person because you're there. It takes time to find and to hire somebody, right? That common saying of hire slow, fire fast. They're ideally not going to rush making a really big hire until they're sure. Well, that's going to take time. That could take many months. There's also the cost to use a recruiter. There's a time to then to find that person, to train them all up, and all the costs involved. Not to mention, it's going to take time for them to start to understand your business. Well, you as the expert already have most likely a good understanding of the business, of the industry. You can start much sooner than it takes somebody else, and the cost is lower. Now, also think about what happens when your client's business maybe changes, whether they need more or they need less. How do they deal with that? Well, as a consultant, you might be able to dial that back or make an adjustment with them, whereas that's much harder to do when they've made a commitment full time to bring somebody on. So those are some of the points that you want to be thinking about and talking to the buyer about, so they can clearly see why bringing you on now actually helps them to start solving the problems they have now, or go after those gains and goals and initiatives that they have, rather than waiting to try and find a full-time person, not to mention all the other costs and the kind of inflexibility that comes with that. Another very common question is, well, how do I package my actual retainer offer? Is it just a number of hours that I'm providing? And the answer to that is it can be. But generally, the only time you really want to sell hours of time or hours of access is if you have a team delivering. This is really common in the kind of software or technology space, sometimes even the sales space, where you'll get a certain number of hours of access. That's usually a use it or lose it. It doesn't usually roll over and continue if they don't use it. That's common. But again, if you are, as a founder, involved in a significant amount of delivery still, I would suggest avoiding hours, because you're then creating a ceiling for yourself. There's only so much time in a day or in a week or in a month that you have. And if you are using hours, you're essentially capping your ability. And what that means is it doesn't matter if there's no advantage for you or for your team to try and deliver a result sooner, because then it means that they're using fewer hours, right? You get paid less. So your incentive should really be aligned with the client, not around hours, but around outcomes. That means that if you or your team can deliver the result that the client wants faster than maybe you initially thought or they thought, then it's a win for them because they get the value sooner. And it's a win for you because you're getting paid and it's actually taking you less time or involvement to deliver that. People often think they still have this kind of equation in their mind or connection in their mind of money to time. That's one way of viewing the world, but it's not the best way of viewing how to grow a business, and especially a consulting business, because clients aren't paying for your time. Imagine the situation for a moment where the client wants to add $1 million of profit to their business. And you say, okay, I can help you to do that. I've done that with many other organizations before. We can do that in the next 12 months. I can get you another $1 million in profit. Or imagine that another consultant comes along and that consultant can deliver that $1 million in profit, but they can deliver it in 8 weeks. For whatever reason, they're able to do that. Well, as the client, which one would you want to work with? I would hope that your answer would be the one for 8 weeks, because you then start getting that profit a lot faster than waiting the 12 months. So does that mean that the consultant that can deliver this in 8 weeks should get paid less? No, of course not. As long as the quality of the result is the same or better, right? They should not be getting paid less. They should be getting paid the same, if not more. So I hope that makes sense. That's how to think about connection of time to your retainer offer. You want to be very cautious not to commit too much. And also, if you start to introduce and use hours, then really what your client is thinking always about is hours. Do we use those hours? So on and so forth. You don't want them to be capped or to be held back and thinking about hours. You want them thinking about outcome and progress. Let's talk about the commitment, because this is a very common question. And that is, should I require a minimum 6 months or 12 months for this? And I think that's actually the wrong question, because you'll get different answers from different people. Some will say, oh no, yeah, you need to have a 12-month commitment. Others will say, no, you need 6 months. Others will say, no, just do it month to month. Don't have any kind of minimums in there. And my suggestion to you is to come at it from a different angle. Really think about how long will it take to deliver the intended result that the buyer wants. And if you know that it's going to take at least 6 months for them to start to see the value, but it'll be really worthwhile for them once they get to that point, and then as they get to month 8 and 12, it's going to be even greater, then yeah, it probably makes sense to think about having a minimum of 6 months. Because if you have, let's say, a minimum of 3 months, or you have no minimum at all, but you know that the buyer's going to see, right, your client's going to see or start to see some really great results at month 6, then you're actually doing them and yourself a disservice, because they're going to be expecting and thinking, even if you tell them, right, they have a really easy out to say, okay, yeah, it's month 3, we haven't really seen what we want yet, and now they might leave, but they're only 3 months away from actually getting what they want. So if you're clear and you say, yeah, it's most of our clients are going to see really great results at around the 6-month mark. And then from month 8, 12 and beyond, that's where the real growth and optimization and progress happens. That's why we always have 6 months, because there's no point even starting this if you're not willing to commit to at least 6 months, because that's when you're going to start to see the benefits of this. If you position it that way, it makes sense to the buyer, to the client, right? And it makes sense for you and for your business. So I would think about it in terms of how long does it take you to actually deliver the initial result for the client, and then build that in. Let's just talk about kind of scaling retainers a little bit here. Every retainer that you are thinking about crafting needs to be thought about through the lens of how much involvement is this going to require of you, the founder. If you aren't clear on that, you might just be creating another job for yourself. One of the biggest challenges for consultants, especially if you are solo or a small team, is that you're doing everything. And that means that if you're putting yourself into too much work, then you're not going to have time to work on the business. And the results you see in your business today are not the result of what you did yesterday. They're the result of what you did 60, 90, 120 days ago, which again just means that it's really important to always be working on your business and building your pipeline, even if it's at a minimal level, because if you're very busy already delivering on projects, you're successful, you always need to be working on your business. I can't tell you the number of people over the years that we've seen that are running successful businesses, but they stop, they take their foot off the gas pedal, they stop marketing, they stop doing business development, they stop thinking strategically, and they stop working on the business because they're so busy working in the business. And then all of a sudden, it's almost inevitable, their business slows down, and now they've lost the momentum, they've lost all the, the mojo, they've lost the leverage, right, that would have helped them if they would have just kept going. So really, really important. If you're in a position right now where you're thinking, yeah, like I know my business could be a lot better than it is right now. There's that next level I want to get to, but I don't feel like I'm doing the right things to get there today. Reach out, go to consultingsuccess.com or click on the link somewhere around where you are watching or listening to this and just get in touch. We're happy to have a conversation with you about your situation and what you need to do to get to that next level. So if you're already at 6 figures or 7 figures or multi 7 figures and you want help to grow your consulting business and it's something that you're committed to, just get in touch, head over to consultingsuccess.com. So let's come back to this. Your involvement and how you structure your retainer is really important. If you're not thoughtful about it from the beginning, you might kind of wake up realizing, well, I'm now just pulled into a lot more work and I don't have time to work on my business. So think about from the start what aspects or elements of the work that you're doing in the retainer, especially because it's recurring, right, can be productized. Do you have systems built around it or will you build them? Do you have SOPs, right, standard operating procedures? Do you have people on your team that you have delegated or talked to and planned around what parts of the project or part of the project they will be involved in and where do you need to reside? Ideally, you're going to be involved in certain elements of it that you enjoy the most or that are the most strategic and high value, whereas all the other parts of a given project, which might be client communications, scheduling, it might be presentations, it might be reporting, it might be documentation, so on and so forth, is done by other people on your team. That is really important because then the machine can run. And it means that your team is able to deliver, month after month, week after week, so on and so forth, without as much of your day-to-day involvement. Now, I have to talk about one more thing before we wrap this up, because people often find themselves in a position, if they haven't thought about this, strategically or prepared or planned for this initially when they launch the retainer, and that is kind of retainer creep, right? Also known as scope creep. And because you're involved with the client, people wonder, well, how do I balance taking on the right amount? What do I do if I have a period that's quieter? What do I do if I have a period that's a lot busier? In my over 20 years of running consulting businesses, I'll tell you, and I've done a lot of retainer work with clients, there's ebbs and flows. You might have periods where it's a little bit quieter, you'll have periods where it's a little bit busier, but overall, it's gonna just kind of even out. So generally, I would say not to worry about that. But that doesn't mean that you should just allow scope creep. You need to be very clear about what is included in it, what is not included as part of the retainer work that you're doing. If you've read some of my previous work at consultingsuccess.com, you'll know that I've talked about there's 2 types of retainers. There's pay for access and there's pay for work. Pay for work is where you're essentially doing work, right? Deliverables and so forth for the client, but you're just doing it on an ongoing basis connected to a plan that you've created with that client or for that client, but you're doing work. Pay for access is where the client is paying you for access to you, for your expertise, where you're likely having a call with them on a regular basis or as needed, but they're paying because they want access to you, right? You're not actually doing work. You're not preparing documents or deliverables. And so you need to also get clear on what kind of work you're going to do, but based on which one of those. And there's resources that we have, other videos and articles that go a lot deeper into this around the 2 different types of retainers. But for the purpose of today, what I wanted to share with you is that it's really important that you are clear about what you're going to include in the work that you're doing and what you're not going to include, and that you communicate that to the client, and that you also schedule a meeting with your client on a regular basis to check in, to see how things are going, to see if there's anything that like, hey, you brought this up. This is something that you've now asked about twice. It's not part of what we're doing. Is this something that you really want to do? Because if it is, we could maybe do a little add-on and build this in for you. Or we haven't really been able to get to this because it wasn't part of the initial scope of what we're talking about, but I think in the next 2 months, we can work it in. Would you like to do that? Or, hey, you haven't been as active. I want to make sure that you're getting the most value from this. Let's talk about a few ideas that I have. I've seen with clients where when they get into retainers, they almost get too comfortable and they're not checking in, they're not showing face, they don't have enough touch points with the client. And so after a period of time, the client starts to ask themselves, why are we paying for this, right? What is the real value that we're getting from this? You want to get out in front of that and make sure that you're having regular touch points with your client, checking in, seeing how they're doing, going over things, sharing new insights, sharing new data, regulations, changes, any of that would be valuable and eye-opening and beneficial for your client. Share with them also what you worked on with others that you could help them with as well. Those touch points will really add up and will help you to create a longer term client where, again, the main goal of a retainer is not to just continue being there and charging a client if value is not being created or delivered. Your job is to identify, consistently find value, deliver that value so that it's a win-win for both parties on an ongoing basis. The moment that value stops is when you should no longer be providing that service to the client. And so you want to make sure that you're always thinking about where can value be created? What problems can you solve, right? Where can you help your clients to further their goals or to get more in whatever work that is, whether it's nonprofit, for profit, whether it's, you're working with small organizations or multi-billion-dollar organizations. You always want to be thinking about what is valuable for the person or for the people that I'm working with. And that's what creates a really successful long-term retainer. So again, if this is something that you want help with and you want to get or put a strategic retainer model in place for your business so you can increase the predictability of your revenue and of your growth, just get in touch by going to consultingsuccess.com, click on a button somewhere on that page or go to the coaching page, and we'll be happy to speak with you about your situation, your goals, challenges, and talk through what we can help you to do to get to that next level inside of your business.